Please enjoy this talk by Reverend Mary Shaver at the Center for Spiritual Living, Austin Circle. So each one of us is a divine expression of God, which you just heard in that beautiful song. So God created us out of itself. In the beginning, there was nothing. And whether you believe in the Big Bang or whether you believe that we were created some other way and living on the back of a turtle, it doesn't really make any difference. In the beginning, there was nothing. And then that divine spirit created light. And with that, we could see that there was nothing. And out of that, we have been created. But we are more than creations of spirit. As living beings, we are also co-creators with spirit. And all of the experiences that we have, everything that we have done, we've been part of, and we bring to that our expression as individualized expression of that one life. Our life has manifested all kinds of things, some of which we love and some of which we don't care so much for. So we've been caught up in doing this, and as we come into a new thought teaching, we realize that not only are we co-creators, but we have that ability to inspire and to connect with other people who are also co-creators. So we are one of humankind. We're part of a much larger being. And so as each individual evolves in consciousness, then that greater evolution is also taking place. And it's happening right now, right in this very moment. There's a spiritual process taking place, and it is that one in universal mind. So it shows up in our world. It shows up politically, it shows up culturally, it shows up in the world marketplace, and it shows up in internet, social media. We see a trend happening on Facebook. We see something trending on Instagram. We see all kinds of things trending, and that's part of that evolution of consciousness. I think when New Thought first started, it was new. It was not pervasive as it is in our culture now. We have, through the benefit of Oprah and through the benefit of Deepak Chopra and the people who have stepped out in that, this has been pervasive in our culture. But the real action is taking place inside. The real action is taking place in each soul. And it is here that this idea of oneness is growing. This idea of oneness. So on a subjective level, we understand, we can feel that oneness, we sense that around us. And at the conscious level, sometimes we're more focused on what's different about you and I, rather than what's the same about us. So what's different about people of a certain age and young people? What's different in the generations? What's different throughout the cultural area? What's different between the 1% and the 99%? So we look at the differences. As a young girl in high school, I was in a town of several thousand. And each person seemed way different than I was. Now I look back and I see that, gosh, we were all 16-year-old girls in a high school of 300. We weren't that different. We've gone on to do different things, but at the moment that we thought we were so different, we were really pretty much the same, being all of the same kind of people grown up in this culture. But the idea that we're different has started to change as the world has grown smaller. It wasn't until we got off our planet and looked back and saw this big blue marble that we started to come more into a realization that really we are one people. And so as we do that, we start to get to the point where we realize more and more there is only oneness. And in that oneness, we don't lose our identity, but we are able to become more of who we really are. Because we recognize that there is this oneness and that we're all part of it, and our beingness is absolutely, totally acceptable and has a right to be here. And we are more fully able to express our individuality. And so even though we're not there yet, it's time to start acting as if we were there. Certainly, the need is apparent. When you look at the problems of the world, they can be overwhelming. Well beyond anything that you and I can do about individually. Today's news, 700 people, refugees on a boat that capsized. So far, 24 have been rescued. We're all part of that. And yet it seems like there's nothing that you and I can do. There's nothing that we can reach out and do to help those people. And yet, because we are involved in life, there is something that we can do because we can affect our own consciousness. To whatever extent that we think about it, talk about it, we can affect the things that are happening in the world. And even if you, like I do, try not to talk about it, try not to be involved, try to avoid thinking about these things, I'm still involved in a way. So what is it we can do? Well, it's not easy to look at the world today and not feel outrage at some things that are happening. But that it doesn't really help. It's very human to feel the pain and suffering. But what about doing something? Well, what about this? What about knowing something? What about trusting and knowing that divine wisdom within us? What about having a higher vision for what this world is? And one man had a higher vision. One man that I'm going to talk about today was Senator Gaylord Nelson. Now, you may not know this name, and even those of us who were around at the time may not remember him. But he started Earth Day. And this is the week of Earth Day, as we come into that idea that he had a vision. He had a vision for something that would be different, that would recognize, even in that time where the politics of the time were not conducive to reusing, recycling. Those things were just totally not even on the radar. And he was very frustrated that the environment was a non-issue. So Senator Nelson flew to Washington and presented an idea to both Attorney General Robert Kennedy and then President John F. Kennedy. And what he said was, what ensued from that was a 5-day, 11-state conservation tour in September of 1963. And this was part of the beginning. And so after several years of touring and speaking and teach-ins and still environmental degradation taking place across the U.S., Senator Nelson hit on this idea of something coming from within the people. And he created a grassroots movement that became known as Earth Day. And so he didn't have the resources to organize 20 million demonstrators. He had his staff and dozens of volunteers. But what he also had was thousands of schools and local communities who brought together an American public that was ready for this. They were just waiting for a platform to voice their concerns about the environment. Certainly they could see the pollution in the waters. Certainly they were aware of some of the things that were happening, but not all. And so this was a remarkable thing about Earth Day, is it organized itself. It organized itself from within, using the people and the places and the information that was already available and allowing people to go deeper with that. We have a great tradition in this country of people who started movements, who started that idea of coming together as power and presence of people. So John Muir, you may have heard about him. John Muir started the Sierra Club. He was a Scottish-born American author, early advocate of the preservation of wilderness in the United States. And in 1872, he wrote a letter to Miss Catherine Merrill from the new Centennial Hotel, Yosemite Valley. And this is what he said: "We all flow from one fountain soul. All are expressions of one love. God does not appear and flow out of only narrow chinks and rounded bores welled here and there, round bored wells here and there, in favor of races and places, but he flows in grand, undivided currents, shoreless, boundless, over creeds and forms, and all kinds of civilizations and peoples and beasts, saturating all and fountaining all." Isn't that an interesting turn of phrase? Fountaining all, being the source and supply of this great fountain, whether it's a fountain of knowledge. So from this, we see that there's really only one source, only one supply, and it is pervasive. It is not just in one people, one place, it is all over. And Ralph Waldo Emerson was an American essayist, lecturer, poet. He led the Transcendentalist movement in the 19th century, out of which came new thought as well. This is what he said: "The river, as it flows, resembles the air that flows over it, and the air resembles the light which traverses it with more subtle currents. The light resembles the heat which rides with it through space. Each creature is only a modification of the other. The likeness in them is more than the difference, and their radical law is one and the same. A rule of one art or a law of one organization holds true throughout nature. So intimate is this unity that it is easily seen. It lies under the undermost garment of nature and betrays its source in universal spirit, for it pervades thought also. Every universal truth which we express in words implies or supposes every other truth. It's like a great circle. Every truth is the absolute as seen from one side, but it has innumerable sides. So today, as we celebrate our earth and we celebrate oneness, we recognize that we stand at a critical moment in Earth's history, at a time when we must choose. Now we've been given the awareness, we've been given the knowledge. Now we choose. So in order to move forward, we recognize that in the midst of a magnificent diversity of cultures and life forms, we're one human family, one earth community, and we have a common destiny. So we join together to bring forth a sustainable global society. So this is what spiritual living is all about. Spiritual living is about living in the Spirit, with the Spirit, in harmony with all that are one. So we start with this higher vision, whatever that higher vision is for you. And so the higher vision is this ongoing evolution of universal conscious mind, where everybody who makes up the body of humankind are aware. A consciousness that exists in an atmosphere of unconditional love, where we don't need to fear what other people are thinking or feeling, where we have nothing to hide. And if we start from that vision and start evolving now, despite whatever is going on around us, then we know that every problem we face can and will be resolved for the highest good of all concerned. Especially if we don't let ourselves get sidetracked by doubt and fear and the lure of compromise. So, for us to be effective in our prayers and treatments, it's not enough to believe or hope. Our job is to know the truth and know that no power can stop it. So, there is a new world order emerging right now through the power of this mind. It limits no one and it gives greater freedom to all. No one will have to give up the right to be miserable. But if you'd like to, nobody else can make you miserable either. So all of this is entirely in keeping with what we know about spirit, that spirit is expressing as us and is expressing life through love. And it has only that divine purpose to express more and more of itself. And that expresses in more wonderful ways as us. So this is what's happening right here, right now, and it's happening through us. We make it so by our recognition and acceptance. So let me say in closing that regardless of the challenges that we may be facing, regardless of the challenges we may be facing individually in our daily lives, let alone the world problems, which could be easily depressing, the truth that life always has more to express in, through, and as each one of us. And we dedicate ourselves to live accordingly, to be that peace, to be that resource, to be that responsible citizen, and to be love. And so then through that, we reach the ultimate expression of life, which is pure joy. So let us take a moment and go into our treatment, go into the knowing of life itself. And so from this place of knowing, what I know is that God is all there is. There is that divine spirit, that presence, that first cause, that divine nature, that wholeness. And by whatever name we call it, it is one. It is oneness. And it is from this place that I speak this word, this place of oneness, this place of unity, this place of unification. And I speak my word for this planet, knowing that there is a divine healing energy moving through this planet even as we speak. Throughout its molten core to the crusty exterior, there is a divine intelligence that knows exactly what to do and how to do it, that has manifested life on this planet, that has created perfect conditions for life to exist on this planet. It has created this planet, it has created us out of itself. And it has given us the stars in the sky. It has created light itself, divine energy, even the dark matter, which is simply something we're not aware about. We don't know what it is. And so even that has been created by Spirit. Worlds we don't aware of, multiverses that we do not yet know, all created by that same divine energy, using law to manifest. And so, as individuals, we also use this same law. And as such, I speak my word for this planet, knowing that a great healing is taking place as wisdom spreads throughout the world, as harmony becomes the norm, as peace is present in each heart, as love rules the world. And what we see is beauty Spirit made manifest in form. And with this, I simply give thanks for this miracle of life, for this wonder of the expansiveness, and for the simple pleasure in each breath. And giving thanks, I release this word to that law that says yes, that law that manifests, that law that is impelled by divine creative energy. And I release it. I know that the law does its work. It has for eons, and it will continue. And so in this, there is an eternal knowingness of the gift of Spirit. And I simply let it be. And so it is. For more information and additional audio presentations, go to austincircle.org.